Hello everyone, it is I, the second antagonizer, coming to today to talk about net neutrality. Which, for those of you who don't know what net neutrality means, it means that every website and everybody who uses the internet online is treated equally. Sites receive the equal amount of data, nothing is discriminated against, so on and so forth. So when you pay for your data for the internet, whether it be 100 gigabytes or 500 gigabytes, that data is used towards whatever you search and whatever you stream. However, this is being threatened in America by the FCC to impose regulations on the internet. So this means that your data that you purchase can only be really used to what sites ISPs and governments deem to be appropriate, what they deem to be fitting and deserving of this data. So imagine if you paid somebody to get 500 gigabytes, and that data that you paid for can only really be used towards sites that ISPs and governments want it to be used towards, and sites that maybe you'd rather use instead, sites that aren't chosen, sites that are discriminated against by these companies, will not receive any data, and therefore when you try to connect to these sites, the speed will be, it's either they will be extremely slow because they're not prioritized, or they're just blocked and they don't get any data at all and you can't use them. This is what is happening in America right now. It hasn't passed yet. I believe it's due to pass on the 14th of December, which is pretty early. I think it was around there. It's pretty bad. I've just heard about it recently. And this is something that will damage consumers and businesses. It will damage big businesses, and especially for small businesses. Big businesses, because they will potentially have to pay ISPs and governments more money so they can be prioritized on the data list, on the bandwidth, on the data list to receive more bandwidth on their sites, so people can actually connect to them. So they would have to pay more for the same services. It used to be equally. So when somebody connected to just their website, all their data would be devoted to be used on their website to streaming it. But now they would have to pay ISPs and governments to allow consumers to actually spend their data regularly and just equally on their site. And smaller companies, well, they can't even afford to pay them in the first place, could they? So maybe they get blocked completely if, for example, ISPs and governments don't like what they're putting on their site. Or maybe if nobody likes what they're putting on the site, and maybe they're doing really well with their small business, but just don't have enough money to compete against other businesses, maybe they just don't receive the highest priority, because they just don't have the money to get the data and the bandwidths. And consumers, you would have to pay not only for your data now, but you would have to pay these companies, these ISPs, internet service providers, more money to use your data you've already paid for on your favorite sites that aren't being prioritized. It's just simply because they're not prioritized. You probably have to do something like that. Essentially, you'd have to pay a ransom. This is, like I said, this is happening in America. This could just as easily spread to here in Australia, spread to Russia, could spread to India, anywhere really. It could. Once America goes down in terms of the internet, everybody else would just follow. And I think especially Australia, because we just follow American leadership like headless sheep. We just fucking follow them. So it would happen here. And it's a fantastic way for the government to regulate their people, because it monopolizes the internet, and it essentially turns it into a big television. You consume what they want you to consume, unless maybe if you're given the option to pay for more data on your websites that you want to use, then you would have to do so. It monopolizes the internet. It promotes censorship on the internet, because some sites are being prioritized more than others. I see nothing but negativity coming from this, from many of the big companies. I mean, even with Netflix, because they'll have to pay more money they'll have to pay ransoms to ISPs and governments to get more data on their websites, so people could stream normally on their websites. It would cost those companies a hell of a lot more money. It would grant governments just complete control over the internet and regulate it to the point where I mean, the internet's so good now, how it is now, because you can not only can you get a perspective of one person who supports this view on a certain subject, but you can get the opposing view as well. Somebody over here, who maybe doesn't support the views of the governments or ISPs or anything like that. They have a view that's completely against government's view. Now they're not going to be prioritized. They're probably going to be censored. They're probably going to be blocked off. They receive no data on their website now. And instead, this other person receives data on their website. Essentially, it's just making the internet just a big fucking television, just a television screen. Television, it's the perfect propaganda machine. It's just whatever they want you to consume, you consume it. You just sit down, watch, and consume what they want you to consume, and therefore you think how they want you to think. Same will happen on the internet if this shit passes. Gamers, imagine. A lot of my mates watch my YouTube channel, and a lot of them are gamers, especially Sick Bubblegum, right? Sick Bubblegum 115, my best mate. Imagine if you had to pay more money to ISPs to use your data you've already paid for, to download your games online, because they didn't prioritize those sites where you download games from. They didn't prioritize them. So now you have to pay more money, not just for your data, but to just download these games from the site, the Microsoft Corporation sites, just so you can install them how you used to install them. With the same speed. You probably have to pay more now. You have to pay this ransom shit. Right? I mean, even with people who play World of Warcraft, for example. I mean, now, maybe World of Warcraft isn't prioritized. You'd have to... Blizzard would probably have to pay more money to get their service prioritized. So they can receive the bandwidths on their service, and maybe they'll then ask, and then the consumers would probably, or probably as well, consumers would have to pay ISPs to use their bandwidths on the Blizzard service, so they can actually play World of Warcraft, for example. And this isolates us a lot more as well, because when everything's regulated on the internet, you can't, like I said, you can't receive opposing views on a certain topic. You consume what they want you to consume, and the sites that you are able to communicate with people overseas on more effectively, maybe they're blocked now, and you can't use them. Maybe you can't use 4chan anymore. All these other sites anymore that they don't want you to use. Right, and so you become more isolated. Country becomes a beating country, and maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but we rely so much on the internet these days not just to communicate with each other, but to learn and to shape ourselves as well. It's such a huge part of our lives, and we're so dependent on it. And they just want to. And now now the equality of the internet is just being friend as we know it. I'm going to pass. I'm probably going to wrap it up there. That explains enough. This video's long enough. It's like 8 minutes. So I'm going to leave a petition below. Please sign it. If not for yourself in your own country, if you're not in America, then for Americans at least. A lot of the big websites like Google, YouTube, they originated in America, and they're a huge part of the internet just as much as everyone else is. And like I said, if it happens in America, if this passes in America, it could come to your country as well. So please sign the petition. This will damage all of us, and it will only support 0.1% of the population. It will only support these ISP companies and government. That's it. It's not going to support us at big companies. It's not going to support the consumers. It's not going to support anybody but this maybe 0.5, or not even that 0.1% of the population. So sign the petition, support neutrality on the internet, so we can all
use an internet that is not discriminated against and that receives data equally across all websites. Anyway, signing off. Have a good day.